Skol Bones, Week 6. John Hartley and Jeff Peterfee here with you, and welcome to Friday. This is the day that we release this episode, and you can find us on our Headlines episode that comes out every Thursday. You can find us on YouTube for our college picks. Jeff,
Yes.
both teams sitting at 2-2-1 right now.
Sure.
How you feeling as a Vikings fan?
I'm feeling pretty good. I think we had the hiccup against the Bills a couple of weeks ago. Followed that up with two very good performances against two very good teams. Barely losing and giving ourselves a chance to tie or take the lead against the Rams 2 weeks ago on Thursday before a turnover on the final drive within the last minute or two. And then last week beating the world champion Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, I think is a huge win. And I don't know that the Vikings are getting enough credit for those last two games that they've played, that they played well in those last two games. You know, they played two very good teams, and they came out through the buzzsaw the first 5 games of their schedule, and they came out 500, which, looking at the schedule going into the season, I thought they might have been 2-3 at this point in the season. I thought they beat the 49ers and the Bills. I thought they'd be their only 2 wins, but they didn't beat the Bills, but they did get 2 wins. So
it's been a bit of a bizarro season for the Vikings in that way, and all of this with a kind of depleted offensive line.
Okay, what offensive line? It's my high school offensive line.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think we talk about it every week, and each week it seems like somebody else gets hurt.
Riley Reif has been hurt. Rimmers has been terrible. Literally could go through the entire offensive. I'll pull up the depth chart right now and see who is starting where at what point now. Riley Reif is questionable. He's the only left tackle listed.
Ugh.
Tom Compton's terrible. Pat Elflein's okay at center. Mike Rimmers, the guard, terrible. Rashad Hill is a career backup, and he's listed as a starting right tackle. He might slot in at left tackle if Reif can't go, which brings up the rookie Brian O'Neill to start at right tackle, and he's a rookie, so he keeps making rookie mistakes. It's hard to get a feeling for what this line is. But despite all that, Kirk Cousins is having a career high in completion percentage, over 70%. A lot of them are short throws, a la Sam Bradford in this offense 2 years ago, but he is getting the numbers as Thielen and Diggs are taking the ball and running with it. There's a lot of run after the catch.
I actually submitted a Twitter poll to our followers today. It's about 107 folks at Toss Podcast, the handle. That was, who throws for more yards this coming Sunday? Is it going to be Baker Mayfield or Kirk Cousins? And with 11 votes, Kirk Cousins comes out as the winner of that at 55%. So 55 versus 45. So
6-5.
Jury's still out there. But, Kirk Cousins magically having a good season, even though he's not getting a ton of help from his line.
What's helping him, though, is Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. No one else in the receiving corps. Kyle Rudolph, he's kind of having the same year that he always has. Adam Thielen this week became the first receiver in NFL history, or in Super Bowl era NFL history, to record a 100-plus yard game in each of the first 5 games of the season. He has 47 catches, which also leads the NFL. So he is having a career year. Glad we still have him on the books for the next 2 years at relatively cheap. Stephon Diggs also having a pretty good year. I think he's got 40 catches. It's just exciting to see these two guys and not have any fear when the ball goes toward them. They're going to make the play. They're always, for some reason, they are always open. Adam Thielen is one of the best route runners in the league, and he proves it week in and week out.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch some of those games because I've had the opportunity to. I've probably watched more Vikings games this year than I have, I don't know, last couple of years combined. So it's been fun.
Diggs has 37 catches for 402 yards and 3 scores. Thielen, 47 catches for 589 yards and 3 scores as well. Meanwhile, the rushing game is non-existent, 32nd in the league. Latavius Murray leads the team with 106 total yards rushing. Dalvin Cook has 98 total yards rushing. So that's fun. Stephon Diggs has has 4 carries on the season. The longest rush for anyone on the team was Stephon Diggs. He had a long of 20 yards. It's the only 20-yard run of the season. No rushing touchdowns this year.
I'll say this about the Vikings rushing game is that even though you're dead last in terms of pretty much all rushing stats, you're also last in attempts. So at least you don't have like the most attempts and the fewest yards. It's just you have 19 attempts per game. And I think part of that is because Dalvin Cook's not in there, and part of that is because of the offensive line. So
against the Bills, we got down so quickly. We only attempted like 6 or 10 runs or something in that game. I mean, it was in the Rams game. It was a shootout, so you had to throw the ball to keep up with them.
Vikings know what they are at this point, which is good. So
the short throws, so screen passes out. A lot of passes at or behind the line of scrimmage for Kirk Cousins. That's just an extension of the run game.
Yeah, it's good to not try things that you won't be able to do. And vice versa, Cleveland Browns have the second most rushing yards on the season, and that is with 144 yards per game.
They have 2 pretty good running backs back there. One of whom should get a lot more carries.
Yeah, and sorry, I misspoke. They have the most rushing yards in the NFL. They have the second most yards per game. That's because the Panthers have had a bye week.
One fewer game,
But 723 yards on the ground so far. Carlos Hyde and Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb didn't get too many carries this past week. When he did, he wasn't able to do a whole lot against the Ravens defense. I think you'll see him get the ball a lot more across the rest of the season. Carlos Hyde keeps busting it for 10 yards at a time. He had a couple runs on Sunday where he was just bouncing off people, spinning, and just getting the extra yards, keeping the legs churning. So it was pretty awesome to see, because he had Isaiah Crowell the year before he'd hit the hole and he'd get you 2 or 3 yards, but that was it, because he was dedicated to a certain hole that he was going to go to, whereas Carlos Hyde kind of does that, hang out in the backfield, see what opens up, and then pound through and get 5-10 yards. And that's been a lot of fun for me to watch. And especially,
question, John.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. Why does Duke Johnson have more attempts than Nick Chubb? Why does Tyrod Taylor have more attempts than Nick Chubb on the season?
Because Nick Chubb is a rookie and only had a really good game 2 weeks ago.
He's averaging 11 yards per carry. He's only carried the ball 13 times. You can't even get a sense of how good or bad he is.
Right.
He only carried the ball 13 times.
When you have Carlos Hyde, who is he's
averaging
pretty close,
70 yards a game. Okay, that's not great.
He's a workhorse though, and he's getting you the yards that you need. I just said I think Nick Chubb is gonna get more time. He's gonna get more carries across the rest of the season. Like, it's gonna happen. Everybody's getting all bent out of shape. Like, he's got all these yards per attempt. Yeah, because he had 2 touchdowns against a terrible Raiders defense.
Yeah,
that were plus 35 yards plus. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
give him the ball more.
You got to work him into the game plan. Todd Haley has to do a better job of that. He's admitted that. He's like, yeah, we got to get him the ball more. So they're working on that. At the beginning of the season, you didn't think you were going to be able to put Nick Chubb in as a 10 to 20 carry per game back.
I'll tell you who did. John Hartley thought you did. John Hartley thought Nick Chubb would be great. Ask John Hartley from 2 years ago and last year what he thought about Nick Chubb.
When John Hartley thought he was going to win the Heisman. Like, I was so excited when they got Nick Chubb, so I'm happy he's getting to see the field at all. This last week, like I said, didn't do anything against the Ravens defense, so it really is just dependent upon the defense. A terrible defense is going to slice him up. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a lot of carries against the Chargers. They're okay defensively, but they're no Ravens defense. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Chubb can do the rest of the season. It's hard to know what to do with Duke Johnson at this point, though. Because if you have Carlos Hyde as your power back, and then pretty much your every down back, and then you have Nick Chubb kind of coming in for him as he gets tired, where does Duke go? And so some have said he'll go out to the slot. Some have said he'll be more of a receiver.
Duke is trade bait, man. You got to trade him.
He said it last week, and it came up a couple of times on Twitter this past week, but I just don't see them trading Duke. I can see him getting frustrated.
You got to trade Tyrod Taylor, and you got to trade Duke Johnson.
Why would anybody want Tyrod Taylor?
He would be a great backup.
No, he wouldn't.
A backup quarterback? Yeah, he would.
Okay, if you want your backup quarterback to be able to come in and not win any football games, then I'm 100% behind that.
What's a backup for, John?
A backup is to come into the game when a player gets hurt and then succeed as their replacement.
The backup's there to not lose the game. Name a competent backup that you want to come in and start every game for you.
Nick Foles.
I could say the same thing for Kirk Cousins. And
Jimmy Garoppolo.
For Case Keenum, and how did their seasons go for them this year so far?
Tom Brady was backup once. So was Brett Favre.
We're going to go down that route. We're going to go down that route, John.
I'm just saying, like, you can make an argument either way, but I would not want to get Tyrod Taylor after witnessing what I witnessed the first 2.5 games of the season. I would not ever trade for him.
Then why don't you put him out there? Because there are plenty of teams that would bite at him, but love to have him as a backup.
I'm sure John Dorsey has explored that option.
There are so many teams I'm sure would love to have Tyrod Taylor as a backup.
I doubt that Kyle Shanahan would want him out in San Francisco.
All right, John, who are the Browns playing this week?
Browns are playing the Chargers this week. Chargers will be headed from the West Coast to Cleveland, and they'll have to deal with essentially for them, a 10 a.m. start time as the Browns will play at 1 o'clock in First Energy Stadium. Pretty exciting stuff. The Browns defense has 15 turnovers or 15 takeaways so far this season. Denzel Ward continues to impress, and I really think that they're going to wreak some havoc back in the backfield. I believe Joey Bosa is not going to be playing in this game.
Yes, he has come out and said within the past week that he believes he'll be out until their bye week. I think is week 7, so week 8 will be the earliest they'll see Bosa.
Yeah, so that is pretty exciting for Desmond Harrison and Chris Hubbard, who will not have to worry about him.
Yes, right.
And that's also good for Baker Mayfield because he's not going to have to worry about running away from him.
Browns are favored by 1 point, John. How do you feel?
I feel like Vegas is tired of getting screwed over, and that's why it's only 1 point.
It's because every Browns game has been a close game.
Browns are 4-1 against the spread, man.
Because every game's been by a field goal.
No, the Jets game was 4 points.
Oh, all right, 4 points.
Yeah, that's not a field goal, buddy boy.
Right.
So yeah, it's man, just after this last game, I don't know if I can handle another overtime game. So I really hope that they win this one in regulation.
Well, did you see the stat I put in your Browns notes for the day?
I did not. I haven't even looked at those.
The NFL record for most overtime games by a single team in a single season is 5. It was done twice by the 2003 Panthers and the 83 Packers.
Got it.
15 teams have 4. The Browns currently have 3 through 5 games.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a stat for most overtime games across the NFL in a season. Like what season had the most overtime games? I couldn't figure out that stat, but
yeah, that's
single
harder to
team
track
is
down.
5.
I'll run through.
You think the Browns will hit 5?
No, they better not. I think they're figuring it out. They're figuring out how to win. They beat the Ravens last week, and the Ravens were a good team.
Yeah, the Ravens are. Chargers, I think, are a good team too. The only 2 losses the Chargers have are against the last 2 undefeated teams, the Chiefs and the Rams.
Yeah, and I mean, I think based on the flip side of that, Chargers haven't really beat anyone all that good.
It's true. That is also true.
They have 2 decent losses, but that defense is going to be nowhere near the caliber of the Ravens defense, and Baker Mayfield put up 342 yards against them. And I had told you before the game, I was like, he's going to throw at least one pick. Sure enough, he did throw one pick, but it was just kind of an ill-advised throw. So I'm not concerned. I think he's been doing a great job. I think he's going to continue to do a great job. And I'll run through these stats real quick. Browns, after week 5, are first in takeaways with 15, first in turnover ratio of +8, first in rushing yards with 723, first in opponent fumble recoveries with 7, tied for first in rushes of 10-plus yards with 23, and tied for first in rushes of 20-plus yards with 6. They have had the Pepsi Rookie of the Week at least 3 out of the 4 weeks and had Baker and Denzel up for it this week. Not sure who ended up getting it, but there's a lot of good things happening. Only bad thing that's happened is that Rashard Higgins is going to be out with an MCL sprain, and that's going to be 2 to 3 weeks. That's one of their main receivers that Baker had really had meshed with pretty well. But Derek Willies comes in out of nowhere and has like a 40-yard pickup to help them seal the game at the end of overtime. So I have super concerned there.
One thing, not to poo-poo, not to rain on your parade.
Go for it, man. Be the Colin Cowherd.
Cleveland has been great at defense, and I've been saying this the past week or two. Cleveland has had a great defense, but I read this somewhere. I heard someone else say it, one of those two, throughout the week. Cleveland is actually ranked 28th in total defense. They rely so much on turnovers, and they've been great at forcing turnovers this year. But as far as yardage gained against them, they are 28th in the league in yards against overall. They're 27th in pass yards against. They're not doing as great as we think. 22nd in rush yards against, but they're allowing a lot of plays, and then they come up with the big play at the end, which, yes, you can live on that, but a lot of times it's hard to sustain that throughout a season. They've had 5 games of success in the turnover margin. Hopefully they can continue that and start cleaning up on the offensive side, because the defensive side is not going to sustain this high level of forced turnovers. I want the Browns to do well. It's a good story for Cleveland. They're almost playing like a playoff team at this point, because they don't ever feel like they're out of a game.
Yeah, for once. And just to your point real quick, I think the sample size is still too small to really say, well, the Browns aren't that good of a defense because they give up so many yards. But really, you look at their yards per game given up passing-wise, they give up 281.4. And part of that is because Derek Carr went off when they played the Raiders and had 437 yards. So, that's a bit of an outlier. And then you have the other side. Sam Darnold didn't have a very good game against them. And overall, it doesn't concern me, I guess. This offense is starting to click, and you're seeing that Big 12 mentality of the Browns and of Baker Mayfield. We don't really need to prevent them from scoring. We just need to score more.
Yeah, right?
So,
except he scored 9 to 12 the last game.
Hey, it was enough. It was enough.
You're right.
After Greg Joseph missed an extra point, and then he missed one at the end of regulation. The point was, they had the chance to win a couple of different times, and they finally did with
that field goal through.
2 seconds left in overtime. Who are the Vikings playing this week, and how are you feeling about that one?
I feel much better. The next 2 weeks, the Vikings have, I don't want to say easy games, because look what happened with the Bills, but I think they learned a lesson against the Bills. They play the Cardinals this week. I don't think they're going to take the Cardinals lightly, the way that they went into that Bills game. I think they're going to be focused, have their head on straight, and they're going to finally put together and be the Vikings team that everyone expected them to be coming into the season. They'll get the rest of the league to look at them. I think they're going to win here by double digits. They're favored by 10.5 in this one or something like that. So
it's the biggest spread this week.
They were favored by 17 against the Bills and lost outright by a lot. So, I hope Adam Thielen continues his streak of 100-yard games. Danielle Hunter has a streak. He's gotten a sack in every game so far this season, so he's got 5 sacks on the season. I hope that streak is able to continue. A couple of things in Dalvin Cook today. was limited as a full participant in practice for the first time since he hurt his hamstring 2 weeks ago. So that's exciting to hear. A lot of good things going the Vikings' way. Big win against the Eagles. Just don't let it be a letdown this week against the Cardinals, next week against the Jets, before hosting New Orleans in a rematch of the Minneapolis Miracle here in 3 weeks.
Do you think Everson Griffin is going to be able to come back this season at any point?
No.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about him. I think it was not during the show, but off air, and it didn't sound great for the season. I wasn't sure if there had been any updates along those lines.
The updates we keep hearing, the Vikings are very supportive of what's going on, mental health and getting him right. A couple of stories have come out how the Vikings and Everson Griffin are kind of breaking down barriers with the mental health aspect and trying to get your life on a straight path to figure out exactly what's going on with there. So there's a lot going on with it that I'm sure is all a lot more behind closed doors. We don't know the whole extent of everything still. Nothing's really come out an update along those lines. So I don't expect him to play the rest of this season. I hope he gets himself straight. That's way more important than how good of a football player he is.
Yep. Agree. Did Dan Bailey end up kicking any field goals last week?
Yes. Dan Bailey did kick field goals last week. He missed 2 and made 2.
Okay. So is he an upgrade from Daniel Carlson?
The Vikings kicking is just cursed forever.
I feel I don't have a stat on this, but I feel like this year is the most missed field goals and extra points we've ever seen through 5 weeks of the NFL season. There have been so many, and Mason Crosby really turned the tables with 5.
Week two is when both of our kickers got fired. I think that was the 3rd or 4th most kicks missed in a single week.
Yeah.
I'll say that. So that's the last time I looked that stat up. So
Incredible.
Welcome to the. It looks like the extended extra point is making a difference though.
It is. It's doing exactly what the competition committee wanted it to do, which is make it not a sure thing anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's putting a wrinkle in the game, and people are missing extra points. It's causing people to finally get mad at kickers and making that a very important play of the game.
As if kickers' lives weren't hard enough already.
It's true.
Now people are just even more mad at them. Anything else for this coming week in the Vikings world?
Nope. Hopefully everything goes well, and the Vikings come away with another win.
Nice. Last thing for the Browns, Snoop Dogg visited practice this week, and so it seems like he's a bandwagon fan. He had been a Steelers fan, so I don't know if I really want him as a Browns fan. Seems like, Browns are good now, so I'll just hop on over there. But apparently he was friends with Hugh Jackson. I think they have some ties from when Hugh was at Oakland. No confirmation there. But, it in general, like I've been watching the Reddit subscribers for the Browns just continue to go up and up and up and up. I think they started at 25,000 this season. Now it's up to 33,000. And so people seem to be hopping on that bandwagon, which is weird to say. Like I'm sure last year and the year before, like you had a lot of folks kind of hopping on the Vikings bandwagon, did you?
When? Last year?
Yeah, last year when they were making their run.
I mean, I didn't notice anybody hopping on the Vikings bandwagon. I'm sure around the country there were.
Well, yeah, at this point, you could almost say that the Browns are America's team. Everybody loves an underdog story.
Yeah, man.
No longer the Cowboys because they're kind of bad this year anyway, but
yeah, man, sure.
I'll just keep living in my dream world and keep winning those football games. Hopefully we talk next week and it's 3-2-1 for both of our teams. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of Skol and Bones. The Browns and Vikings play at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Browns will not be showing in Columbus, so you'll have to go someplace or watch it online through whatever systems you use. Until next time, I'm John Hartley.
I'm Jeff Peterfee.
Saying go Brownies.
Skol Vikings.
Last stat I'll throw your way about the Browns' passing defense. While they may be giving up 280 yards a game. The quarterback passer rating against them is 74.2, which is second best in the NFL.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's because they force a lot of turnovers.
And they're in the top 10 for sacks, and they're in the top 10 for interceptions.